Morning, Frank.
Morning.
Sorry I'm late. Not missing these by any chance?
Where did they come from?
What are they?
End of year bonus payouts to staff. Where did you find them?
Frank in security was having a good old read of them, if you don't mind. Said he found them in the skip out the back. I'm even on some of them. I tell you what, I'm glad item 4 is on the agenda today.
Security should have shredded this stuff. I'm sorry, I'll look into it.
Right, let's get started. Item 1.
So I'm pretty pleased with that. And finally, the last batch of company vans have come off lease. So until they need replacing, we'll see the benefit of that in our cash flow.
Thanks, Fiona. That sounds positive. So, last item on the agenda, data protection compliance. Now, this was brought up at the last meeting, and by the looks of it, not a moment too soon.
Thanks, Cormac. As you know, I spoke to all senior managers, and my remit was firstly to understand where and how we come into contact with personal data, and secondly to understand what the Data Protection Acts say we must do, or as the case may be, cannot do. Data protection is probably something you don't think about until it affects you personally. And as Cormac discovered this morning, the bad news is that this is only one in a series of problems that we have in this area.
Sorry, Joanne. Cormac, before Joanne really gets into this, I really need to point out that no one has ever explained to me or my staff what data protection is all about.
Okay. I think Joanna's going to go through all this.
Well, actually, most of it is common sense. I am familiar with this area from my previous job where I was compliance officer. Now, the Act boils down to 8 basic rules, and actually most of them are pretty straightforward. I'll run through them and then I think I'll try to apply them to where I think we stand on them.
Can we get on with this? I've got clients to look after.
First one, obtain and process information fairly. My first port of call was the sales department.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I know. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. But, That's fine, Mr. Mullins. You go straight ahead and do that. I have tried to explain the position, and, I do have other clients on hold. Sorry. Hello? And you too.
Bad time?
In this job, you've got to be able to deal with clients like Sean Mullins, complaining about a finance refusal. I mean, really. Sorry, Joanne, do you mind if I put a note about this in this file?
You run a sales database of all clients?
Yeah, along with our 10 plus resellers, I've got about another 5,000 direct clients, individuals in it.
Impressive. Discrete Industries must have taken years to grow the database to that.
Nah, sure, I'm only here about 2 years. But I did come through that door with a bunch of good clients, and the majority of what's on that database.
You mean you took the database from your former employer? The people on that never consented to their information being transferred to another company.
My previous company knew I copied it. And besides, Discrete Industries is a sales company. No sales, no company. When you've been here long enough, you'll work that out.
Well, we're completely offside if we import databases of personal information, as we did in this case, because we didn't do it fairly. I mean, how would you feel if it happened to you if, say, the garage where you bought your car allowed your information to be passed on to, say, an equipment hire company?
So what you're saying is we need to look into this. So, what else?
Hello, police. Yeah, excuse me. Look, somebody just tried to rent me a cement mixer. They actually knew my name.
Next. Keep it only for one or more specified and lawful purposes.
I'm one of the reasons that we failed this one.
So this is Tuesday the 17th, and there's the work entrance.
Are you sure that's the right time?
Well, there you go. It's 11:13 a.m. And there's your man approaching the door, round the corner. Now there's the camera in the car park, and out the gate he goes. Now, if he's still clocked in, he's definitely out of work according to the CCTV records.
That's great, Frank. I thought this might be a shot in the dark. I'm going to get Eamon to talk to you about random checks with the flexi-time records against the CCTV reports. Might throw up some useful information.
No problem. If it moves, me and my electronic eyes see it.
What's wrong with that, Joanne? Fair play to whoever came up with cross-checking the flexi-time records with the CCTV coverage. I mean, I've seen this guy's file. He's been in and out of treatment for the last 5 years. Back in the sauce again, I'd say.
Well, Derek, we may have a right to check on a particular individual if there's good reason to believe that he's breaching his employment contract. But we definitely do not have the general right to use information gathered for one purpose, in this case security surveillance, for a completely different one, spying on staff.
Oh, my idea, my fault. Won't happen again. End of story.
Anyway, Derek, what do you mean you saw his file? He's not in your department.
His personnel file? You're the IT manager. It's electronic. It's on the system. I have a computer. I'm the manager. I have the access. Duh.
Cormac, is Derek entitled to have a password to access staff records?
I don't. I hadn't even thought about it. Derek, why are you accessing people's files?
I'm an industrial spy. I'm a manager, and there is no password. The administration database is available to all managers, always has been. Anyway, what are you worried about? It's not as if we leave these files lying around the canteen.
Well, now that this has come up, let's skip on to point 4. Keep information you have about people safe and secure. I'm going to dedicate a member of the IT staff to do a complete inventory of who has access to what and why, including the server security measures. Fiona, in light of this, could I leave it to you to take a look at manual record storage, disposal, etc.? And Cormac, we're going to have to take a look at staff training, awareness, getting people using passwords on their PCs and the like.
Joanne, as I'm in the confessional, I may as well tell all. I was just looking at the last bullet point there on your screen, and I think, well, I don't think at this point I know. I gaffed up big time in this last week, I'm afraid.
Oh, come on. What are we doing here?
Well, let's go back to point 3. Use and disclose information only in ways compatible with these purposes.
I can't believe how inept this company is. Sloppy isn't the word for it. Lethal. Lethal. I clearly stated on my letter and my CV that my referees were not to be contacted without my consent. And what do? You phone my manager, who has no idea I'm even looking around, and you ask him for a reference. A reference. You haven't even offered me a job.
Look, I'm sorry, this was unfortunate, but we were creating a shortlist. There's a possibility of some posts coming up soon.
Unfortunate? I'd put it a bit stronger than that. My employer has a shortlist too of people for my position. I was concerned before about getting promoted. Well, clearly I can forget about that now because it's not going to be an issue. Discrete industries. You have not heard the end of this.
She went ballistic. And now she's making a complaint about us to the Data Protection Commissioner. That's the first time I heard about the Data Protection Commissioner.
Unfortunately, if I can use that word, we disclosed personal information about her without her consent.
It was a genuine mistake.
I know, but I'm afraid she has us there.
She can do that. Make a complaint.
Yes, and what's more, we can be fined up to €100,000 for breaches of the law, and we can be ordered to delete or destroy our databases.
Great. What's going on out there?
It's probably the Data Protection Commissioner coming to take us away.
Joanne, continue. If you can.
5. Ensure that the information is adequate, relevant, and not excessive. Now, I noticed a couple of things when accessing the types of personal information we hold. On the HR side, there's a space on the personnel profiles for religious belief. Why?
We stopped that years ago. It's a throwback to the early days of the company. Helen, can you see to this straight away? Oh, and you should do an audit of what we hold and why. Oh, and don't forget our agents. You'll need to advise them as well.
Fine.
Moving on. 6. Keep it accurate, complete and up to date. Actually, we have another practical example. Derek, maybe you could give Cormac the gist of that phone call. Mr. Mullins.
Don't think that's a data protection issue. Oh. This guy Mullins got refused instalment finance. Bit of a looper if you ask me.
Yeah, Mullins, Sean, 34 Croneyburn, Darga Lane, Bray. It's coming up as a code 3 warning on the system when I put enter his details. Yeah, that's what I thought. A default on a previous finance agreement. Good, thanks Viv. Mr. Mullins, we can't give credit if you've defaulted on a previous finance agreement. You're gonna have to pay in cash. It's here on the system, code 3.
No, you have to be making a mistake.
We can't give credit without a clean record.
No, you've keyed in something wrong. Would you please check that again? You have to. There's no such problem. I've never had a problem. Could you check it again, please?
Not checking on you, but when I was looking at the customer database, I came across Sean Mullins.
Oh, yeah. Who's the industrial spy now?
It turns out that he had defaulted on a number of payments for a washer-dryer, I think it was, and this had been noted on his file. But what wasn't there was the fact that the machine was faulty and had been returned to the manufacturer. And then this poor man ends up having this embarrassing experience.
Not our problem. Reseller staff, inexperience. Anyway, what has that got to do with data protection?
This has everything to do with data protection, and it is our problem. It was our mistake that the full story wasn't noted on the file, and this man suffered as a result of it. The information was neither accurate, complete, nor up to date. 7. Retainment for no longer than is necessary for the purpose or purposes. This was something I noticed when looking at Mr. Mullins' file.
Oh, what now?
Fiona, when we provide a finance package, how long do we hold customer bank account details for?
I don't know specifically. For as long as the person is still a customer. A couple of years.
Indefinitely, as far as I can see. Now, I noticed that we're holding Mr. Mullins' bank account and credit card details on file, and for no apparent reason. Now, if he were to make an access request and see this, he'd have plenty to complain about.
I know what you mean. I've come across the same thing when I was booking tickets for shows. They rattle off your credit card details as soon as you mention your name. I mean, the idea that your account details are out there floating around somewhere.
Well, my point, or in fact the law's point, is that we can't do this anymore. The transaction is over. We have our money. We must delete the information.
Joanne, can I go back? You mentioned something there about this Mullins chap making a request.
An access request.
Hey, you can't go in there. Hey!
Which leads me to the final requirement. Give an individual a copy of his or her personal data on request. Anybody we have information on has a right to access a copy of that information. They just have to apply to us in writing. That's an access request. And we have to respond to it within 40 days.
There's a Mr. Mullins at reception. He wants to see one of the directors of the company. Frank is trying to hold him back. He won't leave till he does. In fact, he's a bit scary and he's getting aggressive. He's about 7 foot tall, huge, like a rugby player.
That guy? I passed him on the way in this morning.
He's outside.
Call security.
He's much bigger than Frank.
Poor Frank.
I really think somebody should go and talk to him.
Derek, you said you know how to deal with customers like him.
Me?
If you gather, hold or use personal information about people, you are a data controller and you must comply with the Data Protection Acts. Making sure you comply with the Acts is not difficult. There are some key rules which you need to follow. You should obtain and process the information fairly. Keep it only for one or more specified and lawful purpose. Use and disclose it only in ways compatible with those purposes. Keep the information you have about people safe and secure. Keep it accurate, complete, and up to date. Ensure it is adequate, relevant, and not excessive. You should not keep information for longer than is necessary. And you must give an individual a copy of their own personal data on request. Ask yourself, how would I feel if this was my information? We all benefit from having our privacy respected. Good data protection policies and procedures are more than a legal requirement. They are also good business sense. For further information, you should contact the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner.